It's a book that opens with a group of teenagers overdosing at a party, and the race is on to find out what they took and who gave it to them. The Last High is a new medical thriller tackling the opioid crisis here in Canada, and it's written by an emergency room doctor working at a Vancouver hospital in the epicenter of it all. That doctor is Daniel Kalla, and he joins us bright and early from Vancouver this morning. Doctor, thank you so much for sharing a bit of your time with us today. When you're not writing best-selling books, you're an ER physician. So clearly you know how to juggle. Your hospital sits in what's considered to be ground zero for the opioid crisis in North America. What sort of real-life experience helps inform your fiction?
Thanks, Ben, for having me. It's you're absolutely right. For the last 20 years, where I work at St. Paul's, we are one of the hardest hit hospitals by the opioid crisis, and I've seen it grow over the last 20 years to a massive tragedy that it's become, with such a huge loss of life, with the introduction of fentanyl as the drug of choice over the last 5 or 10 years.
Well, you know the medical side of all of this inside out and backwards, but what about the detective side? A big part of the novel explores the drug trade, what the police are doing. So how'd you take off the scrubs and put on the uniform?
That's a great question. I didn't, but fortunately, I have a good friend who's worked for the Greater Vancouver Police Department in the organized crime and drug unit for years, and he knew it inside and out. He gave me this crash course to this world I just didn't know existed. I mean, there's so many players involved. The level of greed, stupidity, short-sightedness is just staggering. But it's incredible it exists out there, and I felt like I learned more in a couple of weeks with him than I'd learned in all of medical school at times.
Wow. Well, Doctor, one thing the book really does well is humanize people grappling with this crisis, whether it's an addict living on the street, a teenager trying drugs for the first time, or the doctors trying to save lives. There's some good that can come out of this book, which you can't say about all fiction.
I hope so. I've never written a book with a more important message than this, Ben, and that's that the opioid crisis can touch anyone. I mean, it's not limited to the hardcore addicts, and the hardcore addicts didn't ever intend to end up where they did. First of all, addiction is a genetically inheritable illness. But even beyond the seasoned users, there's so many first-time users or unknowing users who are at such risk of this drug. I mean, unlike things like cocaine and alcohol, you can be addicted to, and your life could implode, but it's not going to kill you the first or second time. But now with the drug supply we have, with the risk and the incredibly poor quality control, this is playing Russian roulette every time somebody uses fentanyl out there. And I really want kids and everyone to know, you can't mess with this.
At one point in the book, one of the doctors describes how the fentanyl crisis is changing the medical landscape in some unexpected ways. That doctor talks about organ donation and how the transplant waitlist has never been so short because so many people are dying and donating organs. Is that true?
It's true, but it's certainly not worth it. I mean, a wonderful fringe benefit, but at what an insanely horrible cost. It is true, because, and it just speaks to the fact that most of the people, the average age of death is like late 20s, early 30s. And in Canada alone, in the last 3 years, we've lost about 12,000, mainly young people, to the opioid overdose crisis.
Wow, a lot to think about. The book is called The Last High by Dr. Daniel Kalla. Thank you so much, Doctor. Congratulations.
Thanks so much for having me, man.
Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe here.
And you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.